Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the modern market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and the Trump executive order market. A lot of changes being made. Some interesting court decisions as well. We'll discuss that as well. Loaded up for discussion today. We have Trump grants full pardon to Silk Road founder. The courts have lifted sanctions on privacy-preserving transaction mixer Tornado Cash. And Anime by Azuki confirmed to be on Binance. It's trading around $1.4 billion. Interesting mix on the headline discussion today. We've also got the latest on price action on crypto and NFTs. And we've got another interesting, insightful segment today on some behind the scenes creator economy stuff, some strategic thinking that we are going to be sharing about the modern market's next steps. Today, we have Legendary and Bread in the co-host seats, and we're ready to get into it. But just a reminder, friends, nothing that we do or say here represents anything like financial advice. This market is very, very risky. And so please proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment always. With that being said, Legendary, it is Wednesday. It's the 22nd of January. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
GMG, I'm doing pretty well. I am currently enjoying my new desk setup. I've been upgrading and revamping that a bit. We'll share a picture a bit later. Waiting on a couple more things. Thunderbolt 4 dock still coming my way to finish the upgrading process, but I'm really happy already with how clean it looks, given that I have to have the Roadcaster on my desk at all times. And it's just not the most beautiful piece of tech. But I think I found a way to put that mounted at a nice angle that makes it more attractive to look at, because I need to have an aesthetic desk to be able to, trade best.
Yeah, the Roadcast was getting in the way of your thinking for the trading.
Exactly.
It's like putting your media world into your trading world. So it needs to be fixed. Brad, you've been battling with reassembling your setup in your new home. How are you doing? There's an interesting zoom in and out with your.
Yeah, I know. I was just like, I need
camera.
to be able to tone this guy down. He's a little aggressive with the AI-ness. I actually
He's
I've
very
had it for a while.
Very responsive
Yeah.
AI, far more responsive than Legendary's AI.
Yeah, maybe a little too much. I actually found out I screwed up with him, and I bought the old version. There's a new one that's actually like $20 more. I should have got that. Legendary, I hope you, when I'm all going through the same struggles. It's been 2 days since the last time I did this, so hopefully I actually have my mic. You can see that now, so you guys can stop making fun of me for having a micro mic. And then like I actually have some stuff in my house again. Like we got our pods yesterday, so that's all cool. Doing the move and stuff, doing the desk thing that Legendary is. I'm probably not gonna have my monitor for a while, so it's kind of clunky. One thing suggestion for you, Legendary. I got this thing. It's like called a Pomodoro clock. Jesus Christ, or this thing. I'm gonna try to be better. Like it's one of these things. I see it as like 50 on one side, 25 on another, and you can literally just like set it, and whenever you set it down, like it gives you. It's like it'll put the time. So like I set it down, it starts counting down from 20 minutes or 50 minutes. Set it down, starts counting down from 10 minutes. And so I can sit here and like set it down. Okay, focus. 10 minutes of this, 20 minutes of this, 50 minutes of this, and like execute. So I'm gonna try to be a little bit better about it.
Isn't there the Pomodoro method? Isn't there like a recommended number that you're supposed to concentrate for, and then you go off? It's on for the X number. What are the numbers again, Brad?
Yeah, I don't
Or you just
I don't
making
know
it
that
up
much. I got a timer, right? Like if my other half comes in here and she goes, we're out of here in 10, I can go, okay, 10 minutes. I got to get some shit done. I can flip it over and I can hold myself to that promise.
Okay.
But yeah,
so it might be called a Pomodoro something or other, but basically you've got a stopwatch.
Yes, effectively. But it's cute and aesthetic because we're talking about aesthetics with Legendary here. And like, yeah, that's the hurdle, right? You got to make this stuff look good. It was one of the things I enjoyed working. Every now and then you clear off your desk and it's like you move your stuff around your room and you feel like a new person for a few days. Like, yeah.
Yes, that does happen. Yeah. Okay. Aesthetic time stopwatches. That's pretty nice. Nice upgrade, life upgrade. Right. Let's get into it. I unfortunately have no good desk setup to report. I just sent.
It's actually pure chaos. You've shown me a picture.
Oh yeah, I sent you the photo of it. It's just like it's disgusting. It's terrible. You were genuinely disgusted. So nothing good to report there. Some better stuff to report on the market. So let's get into the main price action as usual. Starting with the majors, we've got Bitcoin up 1% at $105,000. Sounds nice to say 100 something on each day. ETH, unsurprisingly, is at 3.3K. Love to see that. XRP is up 4% to $3.20. Solana is up 8% to almost $260. Getting into, just one other noteworthy one. I don't know if you'd call it a major yet, but another big one, big mover, Hype, was up. Well, just earlier today, it was up like 20% to $26, and now it's at 25.8. It was as low as 20 on the day of the inauguration on that dump. So big move there. Getting into the meme coin side of things, we've got Doge down 5%, got Trump up 11%, back to $40. Pepe's up a couple of percent, Bonk's up 9%. Pengu, again, we mentioned it yesterday, still struggling a little bit at 0.02, down just 1%, but down 22% in the last 7 days. Seems to have underperformed the market a little bit. What else do we have? AI16Z, AI up 30%, SPX up 9%, Murad's coin. AIXPT up 40% as well, back to 85 cents. So the AI stuff seems to have bounced aggressively again. ARC up 47% as well. God, these are huge moves on the AI side. Very interesting to see there. The rest of the memes seem to be more green than not, but definitely not as much as the AI stuff. So that is interesting to note. Getting into the headlines themselves, we've got Trump granting full pardon to Silk Road founder yesterday, keeping one of his promises that was, I guess, kind of made to the crypto community as well as to the family themselves. I think that was an important promise. Brett's going to just break down some of the details there in a little bit. We've got court lifting sanctions on privacy preserving transaction mixer Tornado Cash. That's seen to be quite a big deal. I'll explain some of the details and why that was important in a little bit when we talk about the headlines as well. And then Anime is going to be, has been confirmed to have a listing on Binance. It's trading around 1.4 billion on Hyperliquid pre-market at the moment. Legendary is going to dive into that because he was saying yesterday it's one he's looking at very, very carefully to gauge sentiment in the market in a post-Trump coin world. Like, how will Anime do? So we'll discuss that in a little bit as well. Some notable sales: CryptoPunk Beanie sold for 225 ETH. We had a Nazuki Spirit selling for 165 ETH. As soon as someone saw that the Binance listing happened, someone just went and bought a Spirit for 165. Pretty crazy stuff. And then a couple of other big CryptoPunk sales as well. But let's go to Legendary to find out what else is going on in the NFT market.
Absolutely. Bit of a mixed day for NFTs. On the one hand, we have Pudgies being up a bit, being up almost 3% at a 20.4 ETH floor, but still down 12% over the week. Bored Apes painting a similar picture, down 8% over the last week, and down another 1.8%, not too significant over the last 24 hours. 13.25 ETH floor for that collection. Azuki's managed to have a pretty significant pump yesterday, went all the way to 12.5 ETH, corrected down a bit from that, 11.75 ETH now. Still down over the week, though, still down 5.5%. Doodles down 6% over the week and up 3% yesterday, 4.6 ETH floor for them. And the Miladies, as we said, they are still up significantly over the week, still up 36%, and also up another 10% over the last 24 hours at a 5.2 ETH floor.
Love it. Thank you very much for that summary, Legendary. Getting into the Web3 Roundup to get up to with everything else you need to know today. Solana Dex Jupiter will be distributing its second airdrop today. Important to note that in order to claim that, you need to set up a profile and you must verify an email in order to claim. So if you want your airdrop there, if you are eligible, you're going to need to do that. Next, Trump calls the billions of dollars he made from his meme coin peanuts. That's a pretty funny clip, to be honest. He was good. He was kind of confronted about the amount of money he made, kind of pretended like, well, I don't know if he pretended that he didn't know, but he certainly made out that he did not know, and then responded in that way. Quite comical as usual with Trump. MicroStrategy adds another $1.1 billion of Bitcoin to its treasury. I feel like that's got lost in all of the Trump news all the time. As usual, Saylor just keeps adding to the bag. SEC launches crypto task force led by crypto mum Hester Pierce. I think this is actually more important than where I put it down low. I think she's very much considered to be very, very pro crypto, They've got the affectionate nickname from the crypto community as Crypto Mum. So that is who will be leading there. Circle acquires tokenization startup Hashnote, the largest money market fund globally with over 1.25 billion deployed. Solana added $3 billion of stablecoins on its network over the weekend of Trump and Melania launches. That data came from Blockworks, which was pretty interesting to note. Coinbase CEO suggests he would delist USDT by Tether if future US regs required stablecoin issuers to hold 100% of reserves in US Treasury bonds. Found that interesting. I think they hold a lot, but there's always been these accusations of Tether's Treasury, right? That they may not hold as much of something that they say they are. It's kind of accused of a bit of lack of transparency. So definitely going to be a future battle between USDC and USDT, particularly as things become more official in the States. USDC is obviously the favorite in America. So that'll be an interesting one to see. Then finally, PXL DEX rises from a 0.5 ETH mint to 10.5 ETH floor in 4 days. This was shared by friend and listener of the show, Rodo, quite reliable on the Gen art market, as well as just NFT market in general. It's pretty impressive. Stellar drop by Kim Assendorf. Pretty impressive stuff there. So that's the Web3 roundup. Before we get into the main headlines and the general discussion today, Legendary, I'm wondering, I've got a specific question for you, but I just want you to take it wherever you want. Anything catching your attention first?
Yeah, I agree with you. The Hester Pierce news is pretty significant for the crypto community. So glad that we had that included in the roundup. On another note, the USDT one, with the Coinbase CEO suggesting that he'd delist Tether if the future regulations would require the stablecoin issuer to hold 100% of the reserve in US Treasury bonds. And on the other hand, you have the MiCAR, the Markets in Crypto Asset Regulation, coming out from the European Union, which says that 60% of the reserves need to be held with European banks, which is not yet a contradiction per se, because you can hold US Treasuries with European banks as well. But if those regulations keep evolving and there's going to be more nation states coming up with their own set of stablecoin regulations, I feel like we might get to a point where you would have to have localized versions of a stablecoin to be compliant if you wanted to continue that. And if we get to that point, that would be really annoying, because like one of the great things about USDC or Tether is that you can use that globally, and it's USDC is the same for everyone. And I don't want to have a US version of USDC, an EU version of that, a Singapore version of that. So I hope we don't get to the point, because that would make the whole fucking point of stablecoins absolutely useless if that, or someone would need to solve for the liquidity conversion in the background, that there's like still the front facing, it's the same token, and there's like a mirrored localized version in the background. But I'd rather have it simple the way it is now.
Very interesting point. I mean, my main thought on that, I think that's a great point. My main thought on that is, in all of that conversation though, right, no matter which country you're thinking of in your mind, whether it's Europe or America or somewhere else, the local currency is not being mentioned by you. You're just thinking in terms of dollars. And I've always thought this is one of crypto's bull cases for the dollar, actually, is just the proliferation of stable coins as the global. I mean, people already know that people want dollars around the world already, but I think it's going to wipe out. I don't know in what way it's going to wipe out other coins, other currencies. Sorry, but who wants the other coins? Like, who wants them? I don't want them. I don't want pounds. What am I going to do with pounds? There's no point. So I think bullish for the dollar in that respect. Brett, I saw you nodding along.
One more comment on that real quick.
Go for it.
The circulating supply on the other currencies, like take URC, the Euro stablecoin by Circle, has an FTV of 88 mil or something. So basically, if someone holds 1 million in stables in euro, they're holding more than 1% of the entire token. You can't really trade with size for both like wealthier people as well as for institutions with euro on the blockchain. You have to go with the dollar.
Interesting. Yeah, fair point. Brett, you were nodding along at some point in time there. How did you want to come in, or was there something else you wanted to add?
Yeah, honestly, it's mostly on the Hester Purse stuff. I think that's a huge win. If you've spent any time over the last few years listening to podcasts, she's appeared on like Bankless and a few others. She's very like she gets it. So it's like it's very encouraging that she's not going to head that commission. I think that's an important thing. A few other things I noticed from the headlines, like one, just because I'm a nerd and the technical definitions bother me. So like Jupe is not a DEX, it's a DEX aggregator. Like everyone calls it a DEX and they compare it to Uniswap. I know you know that, but like people compare it to Uniswap all the time. Like, bros, it's not the same thing. Like you have to like whatever. But anyways, that and then yeah, the other is the Beanie sale. It's like the .eth capitulations across the board. So like it was Beanie doing that, and then there was Eric Conner, who's like a notorious. He actually worked on one EIP 1559. It's like part of the fee mechanisms that's important on Ethereum that started like the ultrasound money stuff. And like he did the whole thing. He's been a .eth big bull poster or whatever, all this like weird shit. And he yesterday is like, I'm officially done with Ethereum, and I'm a free agent now. Who wants me? Which is very, very cringe, and very like the way he handled it was childish. Everything he's been doing at this point has been childish. I actually called him out and we got into a tiff about it. But yeah, so you're starting to see some of that from like the OGs on the Ethereum side right now.
What's your important conversation, Brad? What's your read on that whole situation then? Like when the Ethereum ecosystem, or some of the more prominent people in it, or some of the louder people in it, however you want to bracket this OG group of people who seem to be disenfranchised for whatever reason, what's your reading on that situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely shaky right now because the Ethereum Foundation, they're trying to shake up ownership, like leadership there. Some people, like for some reason, Ethereum has been tagged with like this European, with like the soy boy WEF, whatever, World Economic Forum. Like, so like it's being like totally like identified as this not libertarian, but like liberal, left leaning, whatever organization, all this stuff. And everyone is just like trying to come out and say like force change, right? They're trying to take over, do this like attack on the Ethereum Foundation to take it over, make changes. Stuff. Vitalik actually came out yesterday. This is kind of what started everything, and he's like, "No, that's not how this works. You're not going to bully Aya as the current executive director. You're not going to bully her out of it. I make the decision until there's a board in place, and we'll work on this stuff." And they're trying to call for someone who has led it previously, Danny Ryan, to come back and to lead it again, because there was a lot of success. He managed the merge, he did all this stuff. So like they're trying to like a return to glory. So it's actually very analogous to like a lot of the stuff you see, like the Make America Great Again. I know like Make Ethereum Great Again has been a thing. Fuck, Mega ETH is like kind of the whole thing. So yeah, the read is that there's a lot of turmoil at the social layer. I ultimately think it's obviously just around price, and I think it's actually just overblown, frankly.
Yeah, fair enough. Definitely been interesting to observe, and as you say, the price so it feels like every time I say the price is down with ETH, it's like 3.2. Every time it's up, it's 3.3, and yeah, just
the path they took is a much longer one for value accrual. Like that's all I've been writing about for the last year is value accrual, especially in Ethereum or whatever. Like the with having all of these chains and not really understanding how to quantify or how to value a lot of these things, the one that they took is, yeah, it's going to take a long freaking time, because you need some of these PSYOP metrics, which are like the fees and everything else, to like trick people into thinking this is the best way you can accrue value to these networks. But it's frankly, this is kind of like they were trying to say ETH needs to be money, right? Ethereum doesn't, or Bitcoin does not generate fees, right? Fucking $5 a week, whatever the fuck it is, worth 100,000, 105,000, a $1 trillion asset, right? And they're trying to bridge that gap on Ethereum, where it was all fees, all burn, all deflation, all whatever, to like, okay, this thing is valuable because it's Lindy, because it's it's money, it can be used as a medium exchange, all that stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting stuff. Always good to check in there. Appreciate the deep dive into the ETH ecosystem, Brad. Right, we're going to have some big, important headline discussions in a bit. Remember, we've got the Trump pardon of Silk Road founder Ross in a little bit. We're going to be talking about Tornado Cash in a bit as well. Also about Anime and Azuki, and why Legendary thinks it's very important to keep an eye on that one coming. Hyperliquid is trading at 1.4 bill at the moment in the pre-market. But before we get there, we're going to get into our weekly entrepreneurial segment called Publish and Profit, where we explain some of the key secrets and tips to making money online as a creator. Today, we reveal some of the behind-the-scenes process of how we're evolving our Web3 media company into an on-chain media company. This segment's brought to you by Little Nouns, an expansion DAO based on the famous Nouns DAO, who We fund cool creative endeavors which can proliferate the nounish meme. So we already explained last week, we're going to go on chain by minting some cool, cheap, non-FOMO NFTs. They're going to be open editions, no stress for people to collect, $2 once per week. But I thought it'd be interesting to reveal the behind the scenes design process and strategic thinking. And if you're watching on video, we're going to be showing some of the drafts and how we've moved from one design to another. So to understand the NFTs themselves, you kind of need to understand the format and platform on which they're minted. We're working with pods.media, a cool platform on Base, which allows you to easily mint any podcast episodes that you upload anywhere else on the internet. As you can see, the way you explore the pods and the NFTs is via the thumbnail designs as you scroll through the site. So the thing you need to do as a creator is make a cool thumbnail. Some excellent examples we really liked was this one by the Minted podcast by Adam Levy, podcast which explores the corners of where crypto meets creators, and he's a real inspiration in this field. I've chatted with him before. He's nailed the format of being an on-chain creator as he gets thousands of mints every single episode, which is ultimately thousands of dollars every episode, which is clearly a better better monetization method than Web 2 monetization. Also, this other one by Los Fomos FM, I also really like this one, a crypto native brand and show that aims to help creators become unicorn businesses. Thought they had some really cool designs. So this is what we did. I'm going to share with you some of our designs, which are going to be live. They're not live yet on the website. So this is an exclusive. First, we created a modern market thumbnail for the top of the page to just act as the main brand under which all the podcast episodes would sit. Then we had to create a template for the actual editions we're going to mint for the new series of interviews, which is going to be called Founding Crypto. We thought it should have its own IP and make it kind of brought to you by the modern market, which will be the kind of parent brand that sits on top of it. And since core crypto has to be orange for Bitcoin, I wanted to have some orange, and one of my favorite colors is green. So I wanted to combine those two, and this is what we got. If you look closely, we imprinted the modern market logo on the thumbnail to give it a bit of additional texture as well. But we also had the chance to animate it. So I wanted to do that too. After a bunch of editions going back and forth with the designer, the autograms were sometimes quite violent or more reminiscent of a sea tide going in and out. But our designer nailed it on this final version, which I felt captured the pulse of the conversation. So this is the final version we decided on. And this is the one we will mint on Friday. Remember, it's an open edition, no stress, no FOMO, just a couple of dollars if people want to support us and us on our journey. Legendary. That's kind of TLDR, but what's the vision for the series?
Yeah, there's really three angles to that. So first of all, we've been building the modern market. We've building an off-chain community with both people who are viewing or listening to the show, as well as with the modern market community that we recently have launched on X as well. But we didn't have any, this is episode number 428 today, and we didn't have any on-chain footprint. So that was the first angle, the first approach to it, to have this cheap mint, as you said, $2, and have an on-chain footprint. Why? Because when we work with partners, when we work with other companies, obviously the stats that we can share are legacy media stats. We can say we have right now 1.1K viewers on the show. We have 150-ish people in the space right now. We can say that the average person who is listening to us on Spotify or on Apple Music is listening to almost 45 minutes of the entire show. So in the 85-ish to 90% range of that. But we didn't have a Web3 native metric. And we also didn't have a way to identify some of the other people who are listening to us, right? So we obviously know who's in the spaces, but that has changed. That's the minority now. We have 150 people in the spaces. I can scroll through that. But other than that, I don't really know, or we don't really know all of our super fans. Obviously we have, people like Funky who have been with us from the beginning and is joining us on stage almost every day. We have people like Stats, who's also with us today, who join us multiple times a week. We have people who are in the audience who I see every day. But there's also a lot of people who started listening to the podcast. There's, again, 85% of people who are watching us on X video, watching on YouTube, and we have no idea who those people are, except if they reach out to us, if they join the modern market community on X. So what we really also wanted to do with that is to kind of create a super fan venue, basically, to also for us to learn who some of the people are who are both active on chain, but who are listeners of the show and want to get involved with us in that way as well. And that kind of connects to the thing that I said before, which is when we work with companies, with partners, we share those legacy media stats. And we thought it's a cool thing if we work with a company, we might do an interview with them, and we can also share a more on-chain metric with them and have that as an addition to the Web2 stats that we already can share with our partners.
Like it. That is the thinking. On-chain footprint, on-chain community. Let's see. Let's see how we explore. Very, very excited about bringing that to you. That will be out on Friday. Shout out to Lil Nouns DAO for sponsoring this segment. Lil Nouns DAO is an expansion DAO based on the famous Nouns DAO who fund cool creative endeavors which can proliferate the Nounish meme. Remember, we'll be minting on Friday. First time. No stress, no FOMO. It'll be pretty fun. Very, very much looking forward to that. Now, let's get into it. As we said, important sets of headlines today. Starting off, Brad, with Trump and his pardon for the Silk Road founder. Why don't you break down what's happened there?
Sure. Okay, so the headline is Trump grants full pardon to the Silk Road founder, Ross Ulbricht, and free the token down 50%. So just some backup and review of this. What is Silk Road? Silk Road was something that was created was operated from 2011 to 2013. It served over 100,000 buyers and made about $13 million in Bitcoin through commissions. And it was basically meant as like a marketplace, right? It was notorious because a lot of it had to do with illicit activities, right? Drugs, stuff like that. Everyone talked about it. It eventually got shut down. And Ulbricht got convicted in 2015 because of all of those things and the illegal funds, like, selling drugs on the website, all those things. And he's now 40. So like, that's always curious to me is like the age of these people. So he lost roughly 10 years of his life from 30 to 40, serving this sentence. Trump said back in May that on day one, he would actually pardon Ross once he got into office. And he didn't actually the first day. So everyone was starting to worry that like, oh, maybe he wasn't going to uphold what he said. But then obviously he did. So he ended up honoring his deal, freed Ross. It's been a big cry on social media for a while because he's kind of an icon in the Bitcoin community, freedom of speech, like all this. Like they were trying to say originally that like he's not doing anything wrong, he's just operating a platform, very similar to the Tornado Cash stuff. I think it later came out that there was actually some things that maybe were not savory, but I don't have exact details on that. I just remember hearing some wish-wash back and forth of like it wasn't just a clean cut, like, oh, he's operating a website and bad guys got him. It was maybe there was some muddiness there. You guys had the note in there that the free was down 50%. I think it's actually just a testament to how toxic, frankly, meme coins. Like I couldn't even find the token. I went and I searched and I found like free, like several frees, like one free Trump because Trump was in prison. I saw, or not in prison, but like he was being charged. I saw free, free, what's the Middle East, the recent calls for free Palestine. Yeah, free Palestine.
So many.
Yeah, like I'm not even sure. And I saw like 6 free Rosses. Like so, like the the barrier to entry to even seeing a ticker and going and finding the contract. I called this out like, I don't know, like a month or 6 months ago, a year ago. And it's like someone needs to create an actual like protocol that clears up that muddiness because like the ticker fungibility is too damn high, frankly. We need to create like a way for people to actually finally or quickly get the contract address.
Yeah, interesting point. I'll talk about the ticker stuff in a little bit. Because I feel like there's an interesting point there, but obviously the meat of that headline is quite significant as well. And I saw Funky's hand is raised as our resident Bitcoin expert. Funky, want to bring you in here. What's your read? What's your thoughts on the pardon for us?
GM fam. Yeah. First thing I was going to say, I'm actually surprised he got a full pardon because if you really paid attention to Trump's language early on when he was making this promise, he said he was going to commute his sentence, which is different because, and this is what Brett's kind of talking about, despite, and yes, is Ross a hero to the Bitcoin community? Absolutely. The first time I ever heard about Bitcoin was 2012. And the first thing I saw was Silk Road. I'm like, nope, not for me, not touching it. But there are some, things in his past that really do kind of call into question his involvement for things and so on and so forth. And I think that was what surprised me the most when I'm happy that he's free, right? 10 years is a long time for whatever he was convicted of, but I was really surprised to see that it was a full pardon, because that's kind of absolving him of any sort of guilt whatsoever that the court found of. And because of this kind of murky past and some of these things, I was really shocked that it wasn't just him commuting his sentence and saying, you know what, time served, he's been guilty, but we're not going to say he's absolved of that guilt and just let him out of prison. So that was what I found most shocking, just personally.
Yeah, I think it is because Trump managed to find a personal angle to this. Like he said, and I quoting Trump here: "The scum that worked to convict him were some of the same lunatics involved in the modern day weaponization of government against me." So I think because he found that personal angle, he went for the full pardon. And just also adding on the token side, I'm happy to jump in on that, Brad. So there's 3 tokens. There's the one by the family, which lives on ETH, which is the one that he also had mentioned as the one being down 40%. There was a main one on Solana, which is now down 70%. And there's also one, there's a free Ross Runes, which is down 40%. But the fun thing is now, all those tokens had basically the claim free Ross as an action to be taken. And now there's a shit ton of tokens which are pumping, which are called Ross is free, which are basically updating you on the new state of his freedom, which also started to dump again. So it's quite ridiculous how the attention is basically playing the grammar game, going from free Ross to Ross is free.
In the future, is there going to be like every tense?
Yeah,
is going to be like present active. Ross is in the process. Ross is being freed. Then it's like Ross was freed yesterday. Ross had been freed.
This is how English grammar will be taught in schools, with meme coins and learning different tenses across them.
Yeah, we kind of talked about it before. Like it's funny. Like, yeah, the meme coins are like the trend list, like you see on the right side of Twitter. Basically, like that's like they're keyword trends for any given moment. So it kind of makes sense that now they would switch tense, because now Ross is free. Therefore, we talk about free. That's the trend words.
I have an interesting question, less about crypto, more maybe political. So whoever loves the politics, Brad, can jump in straight away. Do like when you was expressing some surprise about the full pardon, Funky? Am I right in thinking that the US is kind of moving towards a culture of this like full pardoning of everything? Like, am I right in thinking when as Biden was leaving, there was like more pardons than ever before? As Trump is doing pardons now, there's like, is it basically the case that the number of pardons each year just keeps going up and up and up? Is that a fair assessment of the situation? Like it's almost a culture of, as you're going out, just pardon more and more people.
I think so, yes. I mean, Sam is older like me. He could probably testify to the fact that there's this constant growth of executive power that's largely unchecked. I mean, it was kind of crazy. I was shocked to see the Biden list. Like, oh, the whole family never can be culpable, for anything. And it really does. Yeah, my wife in the background just said America. I mean, it's really shocking, not shocking for 2025 and the way that the world is kind of becoming this way, especially when it comes to presidential power. So
yeah, even the executive orders as well, right? I'd love to know the trend of the numbers in the executive orders, whether that's just like completely trending up every single 4 years as well.
I do have the pardon. So I just Googled it just to see. So George Bush had 200 in his 2 tenures. Barack Obama had just under 2,000 in his 2. Donald Trump also in his 1 had just under 2,000. And then Joe Biden had 8,000. So yeah, quadrupled Barack behind him in half the time.
They're pardoning whole villages like at a time.
We don't do villages in America. First of all, B-check.
What's the equivalent? What equivalent is there?
Yeah, they're gas station towns. That's right. I grew up in a gas station town. You don't have villages. You just have gas stations. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and then how do you upgrade from you go from a gas station town to what's the next one coming? Like a 16,000 pardon list.
Jesus
Not a
Christ.
city, is it?
Yeah, it's got to be just a town. Yeah.
Okay, just a town. No villages in the States. We'd love to bring stats in here. Stats, just kind of general thoughts on this kind of increase in executive power. Is this kind of tying in with anything that you've been thinking? What are your thoughts here?
I don't know. I mean, it's just a reflection of hostility and polarization between the parties. You know, I think that's like the core thing, and I think that like on this handoff is at absolute kind of like pico top. So, you know, you had Biden say, I don't want these people who Trump might go after. I want them to be okay. So because they could get completely attacked, so he pardoned tons of people. And then you have Trump saying, you know, all these kind of the status quo, traditional politics has been evil. So I'm going to pardon all these people. There's just a lot of heightened tension between the parties and certainly between these administrations. And I think that I think this is more a unique moment in that than I'd say like, you know, I certainly don't remember a trend here. I just remember like this moment of handoff being extremely high and the kind of tensions and strong dislike and distrust between the parties is at pico top. So I think that that's what you're seeing here. And that's what I'd call that polarization, the bigger trend as opposed to like party.
Got it. So, okay. Yeah. So this is just like got it. Yeah.
It's volatility, right? That's it's
a lot of parties
manifesting.
1 week. You know, I'm not sure you can say this is like some massive trend. You know, this is just what has happened in this handoff between two groups of people that like extremely distrust each other.
Interesting.
The last time we've seen such a mass pardon was centuries ago. There was Andrew Johnson, 1860s, pardoning 7,000 people. And many of them were ex-Confederates. So that was the last time there was such a mass pardoning action.
Interesting. Good to come with the stats. Appreciate it, guys. Little detour into maybe more political and historical stuff. Hope that was interesting. Let's get into the next headline then, keeping it moving. We're talking about Tornado Cash. This is being dubbed a win for privacy technologies. A U.S. court in Texas has overturned Tornado Cash sanctions. This is coming from an article written by Cointelegraph. The U.S. court has overturned sanctions against the Tornado Cash cryptocurrency mixing protocol in a decision that could signal a shift significant towards more innovation-friendly regulations for privacy-preserving technologies. Remember, Tornado Cash is this thing that you could use to kind of mix the funds and preserve your own privacy as you're transacting. They'd originally sanctioned Tornado Cash in 2022, accusing it of facilitating money laundering by the North Korean Lazarus Group. The group was alleged to have laundered more than $455 million in stolen digital assets through the protocol. And I guess the defense always was, look, this is a tool. There are all kinds of tools in the world. Sometimes people use the tools in a bad way. It doesn't necessarily mean that the person who created the tool should be prosecuted. The sanctions led to the arrest of Tornado Cash developer Alexei Pertsev, who was found guilty of money laundering. And now things have changed. The court ruled it is ordered and adjusted that the judgment of the district court is reversed, and the cause is remanded to the district court for further proceedings. So the court rejected the defense. What else is the important bits of information here? I think that's the main bit. So it looks like that is being revoked, not revoked as such, but just changed. What are our thoughts here? Legendary, I know we followed this closely beforehand when it happened, and I think a lot of people in crypto were quite upset about it for the reason that I just explained. Any reflections here?
Yeah, I think we had talked about it quite often on the show. Very positive news. Ultimately, you know, as much as we like to argue about centralization versus decentralization, Fed chains, et cetera, that was one of the basically privacy key pillars, key protocols, and having that positive, not regulatory action, but that positive court decision to overturn the previous ruling is something that, in my opinion, is an important decision.
I honestly like this was such a huge thing. So like I loved the cypherpunk angle that came from all of this, right? Because like you remember the whole trajectory, right? So first initially they got Alexei because they said, okay, Lazarus Group, that's North Korea for anyone who doesn't familiar with the name. North Korea hacking a lot of protocols, stealing funds. I think they said something at its peak, it was something like 30 or 40% of all funds flushed through there was potentially theirs. So like it was a lot, but there's a lot of people that also were just doing it for privacy preserving reasons, right? Being able to donate without being able to know, like you're the one donating, right? I know Vitalik used it several times to be able to donate and not show that he was the person donating. So that happened. They said it was okay. Now it's on the OFAC list. Therefore, like anyone who uses this stuff has to go through special registration. People started dusting other people, right? It's like, okay, fine. If this is going to be illegal, we know some of these political people have it address on chain. So they started like dusting them through this protocol. So like, okay, now we're going to have malicious compliance and you guys have to now comply with these stupid rules that you already have. And then other people stepped forward and said, okay, like the reason you're doing this is because, Lazarus Group is using this. They created like a ZK, like a test, way to attest and check if your address is actually receive funds from the Lazarus Group, right? So you could prove, like with cryptography, prove that you were not actually receiving funds. You didn't have to reveal anything, but you could prove that you just. It's like this back and forth of like this whole on-chain code versus like these people just sitting at the social layer trying to make these rules. And like we could through function prove that we're not doing the thing that you're saying. And if that is true, if we can do that, then your rules no longer apply, right? Because if you're trying to make sure that we're not like playing around with North Korea, we can now prove that. So your rules no longer need to exist. And then there's obviously like with the OFAC compliance stuff, a lot of censorship that was taking place on Ethereum, right? A lot of the validators were not packaging transactions that touched the contract into the stuff. And at one point it got as high as, I think it was like 60-something% of all block builders were not building transactions that were touching Tornado Cash. So it got hairy for a bit because like this is all about censorship resistance, all that stuff. And Ethereum survived that test, right? Like it was a big thing for us.
Interesting.
Really, two thoughts that come to mind. I'm always the one to throw in kind of a different perspective, but two thoughts that come to mind. One is I feel like there's like this identity crisis in crypto. It's like everyone says everything's on chain, you can see everything, and that's like a good thing that there's this transparency in the space. That's I personally think it's I'm a bit torn, but people celebrate transparency and how everything's on chain. I've heard that so much, but then also wants tools that can make everything kind of like disappear from chain. It's just one of the things I noticed in the space. The second thing that, about a year ago, there was this trend where huge hacks, like people were stealing, $50 million, $100 million, and it was all getting returned. And I was like, what the fuck is happening here? And I started like asking a lot of people, like, there was obviously Munchables, but there were so many different ones. And, being on blast had something to do with it with Munchables. But there were a lot where stuff was getting returned from hackers. And, as I talked to people kind of like the detective space a bit more, people said that, well, the fact that it's now so prohibited to use Tornado is actually leading to, more people returning funds because it's harder to get money and people are more likely to actually negotiate and return stuff they've stolen. So it's just throwing in a different perspective. I'm not like, I think it's obviously a complicated thing here, but I think that, even in our lives, this product is used for pretty nefarious stuff. I'm sure it is used for very good stuff as well from people who are escaping evil or whatever. But I think it's a bit more two-sided.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I remember the Munchables one specifically because I had a bunch of ETH that was tied up in that. And for people who don't know, Munchables was this fairly dubious, to be honest, animal-related game on Blast. Where you had to lock up all your ETH, and then it literally all got hacked. And the reason why, I think, in that case, the hackers did not. Were happy to, well, not necessarily happy, but were able to return the funds back. Is basically because Blast is built in a way that they couldn't bridge it off. It's like centralized enough for the routes out of Blast to be closed. Therefore, there was just no way.
After that, there were like 5 or 6 more, and like people are like, oh no, Pac-Man had nothing to do with this. Like, NFT perp got hacked. Like more and more stuff got hacked. And when I talked to the devs, I was like, did Pac-Man, he's like, no, he was completely uninvolved. And some of them happened off Blast, where you just had this trend of scammers returning money. And like I said, I think that there was this piece of, well, like tornadoes, like can land you in prison for ages because it's so prohibited now by law. And people saying that was actually a huge factor in what made it where the criminals were just like, you know what, maybe it's probably better just to go to the table and figure out what I can negotiate as opposed to just taking the money and running.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very fair point. Obviously, when it comes to enforcement and preventing some of these things, some element of centralized power that's able to kind of come together and push back, it has been helpful historically. So that's the tension I think that you're describing. Interesting stuff. Glad we brought up kind of both sides there. We've only got 8 minutes left of the show today, so you know it's the perfect amount of time to get into the final headline. Legendary, you said you were very interested and intrigued by anime launching this week. It is trading on pre-market on Hyperliquid. It's also got a Binance listing. What is the deep dive? What's the analysis? What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. There's a couple pretty interesting bits in that. So first of all, as you said, we are on Hyperliquid in the pre-TGE trading side of things, which I'm currently showing on screen, with a very significant volume, $9 million over the last 24 hours, open interest at 2.4 million. The token is currently trading at $1.26 billion. It did spike up to 1.5 on that Binance listing announcement earlier today when trading came out, or the pre-TG market had launched. It went as high as 2.3, 2.4 billion. The first thing that's really interesting to me, because this is launching on Hyperliquid and the pre-market is on Hyperliquid, I was wondering, how's Whales market doing in comparison, which used to be the go-to source for that, and how much is Hyperliquid taking away in attention and volume? And it is extremely significant. If you look at anime on Whales market, the 24-hour volume is just $2,000, $2,105 versus 8.9 mil. So basically, they took away 99 point something % of the market share, which was the first stat that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention on that. And just, you know, as a bit of an addition, because there was a thread yesterday by Anime explaining some details on the token itself. Gonna use 1.5 minutes to run through that real quick. So they shared the full stack Anime blueprint, which basically explains the 3 layers. You have I'm sharing this on screen, the IP layer with Azuki. You then have Anime Coin, which is there for fans to discover, engage, and collect anime. And then you have the underlying anime chain. They positioned anime as a culture coin, explained a bit more on what I just said on the IP layers and on the tech layers. And on the infrastructure side of things, pointed out that anime will be both gas and governance token, especially being the gas token is something that I wanted to bring up because I was curious to get Brett's reaction on that.
Yeah, I hate it. I think using tokens as gas is fake bullshit utility, frankly. And sorry, anime people. It's something that's being commoditized. We're trying to drive it to zero basically across the board. So like it's mostly there as a psyop to like, oh, our thing does something, therefore it's useful. And like doing, hey, it's a culture coin, it's not used for anything, but also we're going to plug it into our chain that we're doing thing that like has utility now and its governance. And like you can't really have both of those things, right? You can have culture coin like is just like you there. It's like a lower barrier of entry to something in specific, something like a broader subject. And then yeah, having it as a gas token, having it as governance, and then now it's going to be deflationary if you're spending it as gas, right? Like eventually it's going to go away. Like I don't know. I think people trying to give their token usage as gas is ridiculous. That's not how value is accrued, right? Like you're not buying SOL because you're spending 0.01 SOL on a transaction, right? Or 0.001 SOL on a transaction. You're buying SOL for the utility of all of the things that it gives you access to, the medium of exchange aspect of it. So I think that is intensely more valuable than gas. And I think it's an idea for people who don't have ideas.
Strong take. Like it. I remember when we spoke quite a long in depth on the show once, where kind of talking about why ETH, like the ETH is money idea, right? And I think ETH as money was best when ETH was being used as money most to buy NFTs. Like in 2021, I wouldn't be surprised if at least a part of that reason was because there's huge demand for the native asset because we needed it to buy things. And that's why we wanted it. And that's why, as you said, for Solana, you need it to participate in the Solana ecosystem, in all the variety of games and economies that you want to participate in. So I think on the positive side, like that's what people should probably be aspiring towards. Like give people a reason to hold the thing because they need it to participate in an economy from a kind of positive perspective, from a purchasing perspective.
Yeah, and my just one further extension of that of why I have those opinions is I think it creates additional friction for engaging in your ecosystem, right? How many times throughout like all these multi-chain endeavors have we ended up on a chain and like, oh, I need this. Like if you go to Mantle, it sucks going to Mantle because then you're stranded because you need a MNT token instead of ETH inside of the Ethereum ecosystem to try to like move around and do stuff. So that, oh, I have my ETH over there, but now I got to like find a way to swap for MNT. And then like, oh, I don't need MNT literally anywhere else in this entire ecosystem. So it's kind of like, it's just annoying. So like,
yeah, you've got to have a killer UX. Like you've got to have a killer UX that like as you bridge over, maybe there's some automatic portion that will go into the native token so
it's
that you
sponsored or something like, yeah,
definitely
like it's just,
hard. But I've seen
just
people
another
try to do it in that way where it's like as you bridge over, you know, there's an option to toggle on, like if you're going somewhere, then you'll get a little bit of the native token to
but then
get you.
yeah, but then you introduce the problem of like, oh, I didn't toggle the thing because I didn't know I needed to toggle the thing, and now I'm stranded on this fucking this thing, and now I got to find a tool that can give me gas on this thing because now I don't have the gas token to even get the gas token, and it's like the UX and educational barrier to that to like have very specific knowledge of this very specific chain that I was just trying to come around and fuck around on. Like it's annoying, it's stupid. I'm intensely against it if you can't tell.
As we can tell. I'm not necessarily going to ask for some pushback, Legendary, but I am going to ask from the culture side, right? What are you expecting from Anime Coin? What is there any comparisons here? Like obviously Penguin's out at the moment and has been, you know, relative to the market struggling. At least recently. Obviously all the Trump stuff's been happening. But there has been other stuff that's bounced now that maybe is subsiding so long as another family member doesn't come out with something. Is that the thing to be looking towards? Like, is Pengu the ceiling for anime, and then there's some kind of multiplier or something that you divide Pengu by to get to anime? What are you thinking?
I think it is the comparison to make because ultimately both tokens stem from one of the biggest NFT collections each. Although the goals for the token are different, and Anime has been way more in this mission to say, you know, build the chain. This is our infrastructure token. This will have many more use cases, and but is still also a culture coin. But I don't think that just from the average market participant's perspective who is familiar with a Web3, it's not talking about someone who's coming from Web2 and sees Penguin, has seen Pudgy Penguin's gift and is buying that, but like from the average Web3 participant, they know Pudgy Penguins is an NFT collection. They know Azuki is one. That's an easy comparison to draw. Culturally speaking, it's also interesting because both those collections have a subset of very wealthy people who are very much invested in those. You have Spirit DAO, which, you know, we had it as part of the notable sales today. As soon as Binance listing was announced, I was like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna drop 165 ETH and get myself a new or another Spirit." Then don't know if it was like someone newly purchasing a Spirit or adding another one to their collection. And it will be also interesting to see how those, you know, wealthy groups of people will post and will be active post-launch, because if we've seen that with Pengu, we've seen some people doing pretty sizable buys. Obviously, Pengu's trading volume is insane and has also been insane on centralized exchanges, like even surpassing the majors sometimes. So that will be another comparison to look at. The support on the timeline, obviously the price action, but also comparing it volume-wise. That's the one that I'm really interested in, both on the centralized exchanges side as well as then on Hyperliquid, and to see how that holds up and compares to Pengu.
Okay, I like it. Just for people's context, Pengu's trading at 2.1 billion FTV at the moment. So Azuki at 1.4 is, you know, a reasonable amount more than half Pengu as things stand. Final point, zooming out as we close the show for today, I know we're coming to an end here, is the thing that I was thinking about is hype. Like, I feel like in all of these moments in time, you just need to be able to zoom out just a touch and notice what's happening. Remember, Legendary, I think you were literally talking yesterday or 2 days ago, like a lot of this stuff's going on Hype now. Like tokens just deciding to list on Hype. Before we were excited about centralized listings. Now people, now from out of nowhere, the Hype listing is like just in the conversation. Not saying it's like crazy bullish or that it's the best thing ever, but it's just in the conversation almost alongside those other things. Not disputing the significance of a Binance or a Coinbase one. But the point is there is anticipation and there's excitement about when those things happen. And Hype, in those last few days posted record all-time high numbers on volume during the last couple of days. So, and it was the one that bounced most out of these. Actually, I don't know, Solana might have bounced a lot, but in the last 24 hours at least, it's up about 14%. So I just think you've got to pay attention there. Full disclosure, I did a bit of a trade on the bottom. I bought a bunch because from the snapshot when I was writing it, I saw like, okay, 2 days in a row when stuff's down, like they're just posting record numbers, like absolutely record numbers. And then I sold it at 26 today. But I'm always looking to just trade on Hype, to be honest. It's kind of a fun platform that also is going to have a second set of an airdrop as well. So keep an eye on that. I think participating will probably be decent at some point in time. That's it, guys. Great show as usual. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks as always to Legendary and Bread in the co-host seats. Thanks to Stats and Funky for joining us up on stage and contributing fantastically. And thank you in the audience. Just a reminder, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern time for 1 hour. We're live on X, live on X Video, X Spaces, and on YouTube. And catch us up on Apple and Spotify podcasts too. We will be back with you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Take care. And we will see you on the other side. Bye-bye.